Hey everybody, Lane Harrison here. I just wanted to put together a quick video for you because this time of year, as things quieten down, it gives you an opportunity to really plan and take stock and work on planning for implementation for the new year. So the topic I want to speak on today is planning, and I want to go through a method that we use and we used it just the other day to plan out where we're going with our business or where you're going with your business, and how to best implement moving forward. So the method I want to discuss is what we call a focus finder. So I'll explain how that works. And we learned this particular method of a internet marketing consultant named Dean Jackson, and he came up with this particular method for planning, which has really resonated and we've found to be really effective. So I'll explain how it works. So the first thing that we need to know is that we need to identify what are the core profit drivers or the pillars of our business that drive revenue and growth, because they're the areas we want to focus on. We want to move away from focusing on the minor menial stuff. We want to focus on the areas of our business that are going to really result in growing our revenue. So there's really, if you break it down, four main areas that contribute directly to revenue and growth. So the first is traffic, or you might call that getting leads or getting prospects. The second is conversion. So that's once we get our leads, how do we convert them into a member at our health club? The third is retention. So once we've actually acquired a member, how do we keep them for as long as possible and retain them and maximize our member retention? And the last is lifetime value, which has something to do with retention, but we can also increase the average value or the worth of each member to our health club by doing various things like adding upsells and offering a premium membership and things like that. So these are the four areas you can really work on to grow your business. If we can improve any of these areas, it's naturally going to lead to a growth in our revenues. So if we have more leads coming in, we're typically going to experience growth. If we can improve our conversion of those leads, etc. So these are the areas that deserve your focus. This is where you should be spending the bulk of your time as a health club manager or owner. So the problem is a lot of people, get caught up and don't have the time, enough time focused on these particular areas. So once we've identified these areas, which we've already done, the focus finder process is about dumping out all the ideas that you have for improving these particular areas. So you focus on one and you set a time limit. So I advise 20 minutes. You could go half an hour or even longer, but I find 20 minutes is a good time to get all the ideas out. So you're going for volume, because in reality there's probably hundreds of ideas for increasing traffic. There's so many different strategies and tactics and ways you can increase traffic. The key is finding where we need to focus and what ideas we should run with and implement. So the process here that we start with, our start of our process, is to go for volume, to brain dump and get as many ideas as possible. So for traffic, we might think of, well, how can we increase our lead flow? What are some of the new initiatives we can do to really do that? So I'll come up with some now. Maybe we'll put on a webinar series. We might do Facebook ads and test that out. We might do a video series. What's some other ideas? We might do affiliates with physios and things like that. So we continue to brainstorm and go through that process for about 20 minutes. You'll find after about 5 minutes, you probably hit the wall and your ideas dry up. But if you keep going right through to the finish line, what you'll find is you'll have new ideas flow, and often new things will hinge off that. So you'll often have kind of stop and start with your idea flow, but the idea is to get as many ideas as possible. So we'll do that for our 4 areas. You can do, one per day, or you could, if you've got, half a day to plan, you can go through that. I encourage you to do that with your team if you've got a team, because, it helps build that sense of ownership. And, in terms of implementation, if your team feel like they're, part of it, and they own these ideas, they're more likely to follow through with helping you implement. So once we've got our ideas, step 2 is to focus. And what we want to do is prioritize what are the top ideas, because we're not going to naturally we don't have time to do everything. So we want to find our big ideas that we feel will have the biggest impact on our growth and our profitability. So not all ideas are equal, but in some ways we don't know what's going to be a hit and a miss. So this is a bit of a guessing game, but the idea is to try and pick the ideas that are going to add the most value to our health club. And if we're implementing correctly, we should get feedback quickly about what's working and what's not. So as you'll see in a minute, the key to this is going to be the implementation. So the way we focus, we want to prioritize. It's all about finding the high leverage activities. So we can rank them 1, 2, 3. You can come up with your own ranking system, but this is what we use. So 1 is the top priority, 2, 3. So we might say, I think video series is a 1, Facebook is a 2, affiliates is a 3, webinars are a 2. So we would go and rank that. And you can do this a couple of times. So you might then take if you have a longer list of other ideas, you might take all the 1s and then do an A, B, C prioritize. So you might have 1A, B, C. So ideally you want to come to identify the vital few, the few things that you think will have the biggest impact for each of these areas. And you want to obviously do it for each area. So once we've done that, we have the final phase, which is implementation planning. So the way this works is we want to actually schedule time to focus in on implementation of these. And this is where most health club managers and owners fall down, because they are so caught up, they don't have a lot of time available, and they put these things on their to-do list, but if it's not at the top of the to-do list, they often fall to the bottom and don't get done. So you want to schedule time so you know that each week you're spending, a good chunk of time on implementing and developing these areas. So you can do this every quarter. And just a back note, you should be doing this focus finder process once every quarter to refine and review what you've done and kind of come up, because new ideas come up all the time. So in quarter 1, we obviously have a number of weeks. I think it's roughly 13 weeks in a quarter or whatever. So we list all our weeks and we want to set a commitment. So you want to start saying, well, at least 5 hours per week we're going to focus on these areas. So what you're actually going to do is schedule these ideas into your weeks. So week 1, we're going to focus on our top thing, which is video series. So if you think it's going to take more than 5 hours to do, you might say, well, I'm going to commit week 1 and week 2 to that. And the idea is to get that completely done. You know, as I've heard before, you're better off having one thing done and implemented than 6 things not implemented. So the key is implementation, because the value of speed of implementation is we can start to get feedback. This idea might be completely useless, but we think it's going to be good, but we don't know until we implement and get feedback. And you know, it might not be perfect when we release it, but we might get feedback, and then we can tweak it and improve it and enhance it. So the idea is speed of implementation, and it's also important to not be a perfectionist. You know, shoot the video and get it out there, and you know, see how your members resonate with it. It doesn't have to be A+ material. It can be your B+. You don't want to be releasing D rubbish out there, but you know, implementation is key. So we continue to plan out what we're going to do for the quarter. So we would do that for all of these, and we should have a quarterly plan of 13 weeks of implementation. If you go through and manage to check off all of those by the end of the quarter, you're going to have, you know, a handful of new things that you've implemented. And this compounds over the course of the year, where, you know, each quarter, if you're implementing, you know, say 6 new things, that's 24 new things over the course of the year. So by scheduling and focusing and having the time invested into these high leverage activities, you're going to set yourself up to have success. So that's the key. The problem, as I said, with most health clubs, they spend so little time on these areas. And these are the areas that grow your health club. So if you want to grow your health club, you need to be focusing the bulk of your time on these high leverage activities and areas. So that's the Focus Finder process. I hope you find it useful and something that you can use in your health club. You may tweak it to suit your own kind of planning style, but the key message is speed of implementation and focus on the core drivers of revenue in your business. So hope you enjoyed it. Check out our next video, and we will speak to you soon.